we live? It says we're live. Hey friends, welcome back to Acre Homestead. My name is Becky. If you're new, I'm assuming you probably aren't if you're in my live tonight. I'm pretty excited. We are going to be talking about container gardening, small space gardening, and maximizing our growing space wherever we are, no matter what our growing or our situation is. So I've got a whole pile of seeds we're going to be going through today, things we're going to be growing together. I have back here some containers that we're going to be growing in, and I have some other ideas that we're going to be growing in that I don't have here today, but I've ordered them and they're on their way. We're going to kind of talk about what this whole challenge is, and I want to also catch up at the end about how your pantry challenge is going, and we're just gonna have a fun time hanging out together. I'm pretty excited about this. I love going live, and I'm glad you're here with me in my kitchen today, even though we are not gonna be cooking today. Well, that's not true. I do have some curry on the stove. We're gonna be eating curry after this, so let me know what you guys had or are having for dinner tonight, because my life revolves around food. So whether we're cooking it or we're attempting to grow it, food is kind of my thing. So tell me where you guys are all from. Let's start with that. Where are you guys all from? I'm excited you're here tonight. Josh is back here. He is going to be monitoring questions. He's going to be taking down questions because I'm not going to be able to answer every question exactly as they come in. But don't hesitate to ask your questions because he is here. So he will be writing them down, and we'll take a couple different times during the live tonight to go over questions. So I'm pretty excited about tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. Oh my gosh, Oregon, Mississippi, Florida, Arkansas, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ridgefield, Washington. Okay, you're not far from me at all. Wow, that is fantastic. Ireland, New Zealand, Nebraska, Kentucky, Oregon, North Dakota, New Jersey, Australia. It shocks me how many of you guys from Australia watch my channel. It's amazing because you guys are in the height of summer right now, and it is cold. I don't think we're going to probably get any more snow. Sometimes we do get a little bit of snow in February, but we have already had 2 kind of little bits of snow, which is a lot for us. So I'm assuming we're done with snow for the rest of the year. So I want to get into just talking about what this challenge is and what it's about and what seeds we're going to be growing together. And we're just going to get right into it. So don't forget, if you have questions, don't worry about asking. Josh is here and he will take them down. So the first thing is, when I was at the Homesteaders of America conference back in October, I met Haas Tools and the owners, and we kind of thought it would be fun to come up with a seed collection of growing in small spaces. I don't know if you watched during the summer when I was doing some garden tours. This just organically kind of happened, this thinking that I had of we can maximize our growing space. I did not realize until I had this massive, huge garden out here how much food you can grow in a small space. Josh and I lived in our suburban lot, which was a tiny lot, for 5 years. And I had all these excuses of why I didn't have a garden. Didn't have enough sun, didn't have enough space. I didn't want to pay for soil. I didn't want to pay for seeds. And I just had all these excuses. And I did have a tiny little pot where I had some herbs in it. And I think one year I had a little pot where I grew some carrots, and one year I had a little pot in my front porch where I grew some potatoes. And my love of growing was started at our suburban house. It wasn't a homestead, but I did start. I might not have grown very much, but I learned to buy local and preserve food while I was there. And that was the biggest thing, though. Even though I didn't have a garden and I had this desire and wish to have a garden at our last house, I did take that time to learn how to find local food producers in my area and learn how to preserve it. But now that I have this massive garden, when I was doing garden tours last year, I realized that you can grow a lot of food in a small space. You can grow a lot of food in a small space. And it made me think that I held myself back from taking those 5 years of being in that small suburban lot where I could have learned skills on how to grow food and learn skills on, because every year this is my second year at this, this is my 3rd year on this property. We're going into our 3rd year gardening, 2nd year gardening together with you. But I held myself back because I had all these excuses, and I don't want that for you. So even if you don't have this massive garden like I do, we can learn and we can grow together, and we can push ourselves to grow a lot of food in a really small amount of space. So the first thing we're going to go and we're going to talk about is the seed collection that we put together. And the things that I was thinking with the seed collection was I wanted it to be kind of like a staples garden. If you've ever watched that 1870s Homestead, Rachel talks a lot about a staple garden, growing the foods you eat, focusing on the food you eat. Because when you garden, you can get really distracted with all these really awesome, cool, exciting varieties. And don't get me wrong, I get distracted and I am excited about all these crazy things that you can grow that you can't grow or buy at the grocery store. But when we were talking about growing food in a small space, I wanted to focus on growing things that we actually eat on a daily basis, produce that I buy at the grocery store that we're going to use, because I have to say with the last 2 years of gardening, I definitely grew things out there that are not they're not things that I would buy at the grocery store. And so I grew them, but I didn't know how to use them. And so they kind of sat in the garden, or I grew things that I see in other people's gardens. And so I feel like I need it in my garden, but I don't like eating that particular thing. And so it sat out there because I don't like eating that vegetable. And so my goal with this seed collection was to try to think of staple produce. And I try to think of kind of hitting every single category of what that is. So I think it'd be fun if we go through the seed haul and we talk about the varieties, because we're going to be growing in containers and small spaces. We chose varieties that do best in containers and small spaces. And what I'm going to be doing with this challenge, and this is going to look different for everybody because everybody's situation is different, is I'm going to be focusing on growing in containers. I've got a couple different container options that we're going to be growing together. And then I also have one raised bed. It's a 16 by 4 foot raised bed that I'm going to dedicate to this challenge. Now, a 16 by 4 foot bed, most people could put either that size or maybe half that size in their backyard in a typical suburban lot. So that's why I'm going to dedicate one kind of raised bed plus all the containers that we're going to be growing. So let's go through the seed haul. If you want to buy all of the seeds, it's one collection. The link will be in the description of this video, and then Josh can put the link in the chat. You can buy every single one of these seeds with the click of a button. You can go straight to Haas Tools website and you can buy the whole collection. Or if you go to the bottom of where this collection is, it's going to have every single seed packet and variety listed out. If there's only certain seeds that you want to grow along with us, no problem. Just go down there and you can pick and choose the exact seeds you want on their website. And you don't have to buy the whole collection if maybe you don't have the space for the whole collection, or it's just not something that you want to do. I want you to make this, your own thing. So let's go through the seeds. Oh, the other thing before I get into the seeds, and I'm excited about getting into the seeds, is we need a hashtag for this container garden challenge, because if you follow me on Instagram, I already put a thing on Instagram asking for your guys' recommendations. Words in the English language is not my forte, and coming up with names and things is not my strong suit. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, go follow me at Acre Homestead on Instagram. But if I wanted to ask here before we come up with the actual hashtag, because some people are only on YouTube, some people are only on Instagram. I wanted all the ideas before we come up with a hashtag. The reason I want a hashtag for this challenge is because it'll be a great way for us as participants to follow along in everybody's journey. So if we have a hashtag and we're on Instagram, we'll be able to follow that hashtag and we can see everybody's garden. Because if I post a picture of the container garden challenge, or you post a picture of your container garden challenge, I want to be able to see that. So can you please leave your hashtag ideas in the chat or in the comment section of this video so that we can have a hashtag. So, and I don't really want it to have the year in it, because I want this to be a challenge that we do multiple years, because we're going to only continue to get better and better and growing in small spaces. So I think it would be best if it doesn't have the year in it, because I want it to be something that we continue to use throughout the years to come, because this is just the beginning of us learning to grow in small spaces. So the reason that I wanted to do this is I didn't want you to miss out on wherever you are. If you don't have a big garden like I do, we can start learning and pushing ourselves to grow food in a small space. So I hope that makes sense. I've been talking for a long time. And do we want to, is there any questions, Josh, before we get into the seeds? Because I have a whole packet of seeds that I can't wait to get into.
Yeah, we've got a lot of questions.
Oh, we got a lot of questions.
At this point, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I've been talking a lot.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
So I guess if I just start at the top, I've been trying to take them down, so I'm sorry if I missed anyone. But from Margie, we have where did your wooden spoons come from?
What my
not-
little skinny wooden spoons. These ones were a gift from one of you, and I found them online, so I can link them in the description box after this live. And then my big wooden spoons I got from a Homesteaders of America. When I was at Homesteaders of America, there was a vendor who was selling them, who makes them handcrafted, and I'm not affiliated with them at all, but I love their spoons, so I can link them after this video down in the description box, because I'll have to find that link.
Okay, and then we have this is a little bit completely different topic,
Oh,
but
that's fine.
we got a couple questions about your decision to go full-time and what made that decision.
Okay, so when I started this, it's been a year now. So January 11th was my 1-year anniversary of posting my first video onto YouTube. And my intention, if you watch that video, was not to make this my full-time job. It was to document my garden, because writing things down is not my strong suit. I'm not good at it. I don't enjoy it. I'm not good at it. So we'd already been here for 1 year, and I was going into my second year gardening, and I so regretted the fact that I didn't have documentation of my first year's garden other than a few pictures here and there. So I started my YouTube channel to document it, and then I had so much fun hanging out with you, and I realized YouTube, if you don't know, is a full-time job. It takes about 6 to 8 hours to edit one of my long videos, and I was doing that after work and during my lunch break, and I couldn't be the best content creator for you and be the best hygienist and do them both. So I have more fun hanging out with you. So it was kind of an easy decision to make hanging out with you my full-time job. So every one of you who's here today, I appreciate you spending time with me, because if it wasn't for you hanging out with me, I wouldn't be here. So that's I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, it was honestly a little bit insane.
Yeah,
I don't know how you were able to fit everything in.
Looking back, I don't know how I did it. And one of my goals for this garden season is to eat as much fresh produce as possible, because last year I grew a lot and I preserved a lot, but we did not eat a lot of fresh produce because I was so busy working full time, doing YouTube and gardening. I didn't have time to prepare fresh produce very often. We ate a lot of freezer meals, which had a lot of our fresh produce from our garden in them, but they weren't fresh salads and fresh caprese salads and all these things that I am so excited to be able to go to this garden season and having, because I'm going to have the time to be able to do that, because now I just work one full-time job and garden. And so it's going to be great to be able to have that fresh produce during this garden season. So
Awesome. So we have a few questions about some of the tools that you use.
Yeah.
Just to rattle them off, since there's a few.
Okay.
So people are wondering what kind of grow lights you use or plan to use.
Okay, that's a great question. I'm just taking notes.
What aprons are you using?
Okay. So
what knives?
Knives. Okay.
Yes.
So grow lights, we are doing a completely different grow light setup. I was going to talk about this today. Last Christmas, Josh bought me some grow lights, and they worked, but they were not super powerful. And because my house honestly doesn't get a lot of light in it, I don't think those grow lights were quite powerful enough to create really, really healthy starts. So this week I am going to be totally revamping my grow light setup. We're going to still use the ones I bought from Amazon, and we're going to use these really nice new ones that I just got, and we're going to grow things side by side together. But I got them from Haas Tools, and I haven't set them up yet. We are going to be doing that this week together. So I got to start onion seeds and celery seeds probably this week. So we're going to be starting that. I will link those lights in the description box of this video, so you can check those out. And I'll link both my more affordable ones that they worked, but I did not have the healthiest starts going into the garden season. So, and then I'll also link my new ones that I'm really excited. So I got to take notes so I know what to do when we're done with this. Links. Okay. Aprons. This apron is new. This apron I got for Christmas. It's got a tie in the back. So it's the cross back with the tie, which I like, because when I bend over, it doesn't flap in the wind. And this was a Christmas gift, and it's from Pottery Barn, I think. Yeah, I think it's from Pottery Barn. So I can link that too if you're interested. And then my green one that I wear that's crossback, that one is from World Market. And my knives are Henckels, J.A. Henckels. These are really beautiful knives that I got as a wedding gift. We got an entire set. So that's those questions. So should we get into the seeds?
Yeah, it's probably good. I'll save some more questions.
Okay. Okay. So let's just get right into it. So there were a couple things I was thinking when we were talking about the seeds. I was thinking of things that grow vertically, that doesn't make sense. I was thinking of varieties of vegetables that tend to be skinnier and taller. So the first thing we're going to be growing are these Cylindra Beets. So I follow a channel called You Can't Eat the Grass, and they are in Canada, and they have a vegetable and flower farm, and she swears by these Cylindra Beets, and I thought this is perfect for container gardening or small space gardening, and she talks about this because these beets are not round. They're tall and skinny. They're a cylinder. So this is the first variety. This is an early spring or fall variety. You can plant them 4 to 6 inches apart. We're going to be planting very close together because we're going to be using very good soil, so that can handle that. And these are a 55-day to maturity beet. So this is going to be a fun one. And then one thing, regardless of the space you have, you can grow these next two things. Well, I have them all organized, but I think in my excitement of talking to you, I mix them up. So we're just going to, here we go. So the next two things are lettuce. So I thought it'd be fun to do, this is Coastal Star Romaine lettuce. I thought it would be fun to have a romaine or a head lettuce type that we're going to try to grow in a container, along with, this is Starfighter lettuce. This is the next lettuce. So we have 2 lettuces in this collection. And some of them we're going to grow as cut and come again, and we'll go all into that. But basically, if you grow lettuce, you can cut around. If you don't kill the very inside part of the head of lettuce, you can keep cutting it and cutting it and cutting it and cutting it and continually get a harvest of lettuce. So I thought that those 2 varieties would be good because one is going to be a romaine, which is kind of like a crunchier variety. And then this one is going to be more of a kind of a soft, tender green variety. So I'm excited about those. Lettuce is one of the most exciting things for me because I grew a ton of lettuce last year and a ton of it we didn't eat and it went to the chickens because I didn't have the time to create or make salads. And Josh and I love eating salad. That is one of our favorite meals.
And when you look at the seeds, can you kick the seeds back a little bit?
Oh yeah, is it too loud?
It's not focusing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the next one we're going to do is Blue Ridge Kale. Can you see that? Is that better? Is it because my face is showing?
I think because your face is showing.
We'll do like that. Can you see that?
That's better.
Okay, so Blue Ridge Kale. This is just a typical kale, and I think that we're going to try to do both. We're going to try to grow out whole kale plants, and then we'll do some of the baby kale. We'll do the cut and come again variety, and this is a 65-day to maturity kale. So I'm excited about that. So that's kind of our green leafy things. Oh, no, that's not true. We have 2 more green leafy things, and then we'll get into some other type of vegetable. We are going to try 2 different spinaches. I love growing spinach. I love growing spinach because you can eat it. It preserves super well. So if you don't have a chance to get to it, like lettuce, you really have to eat it fresh. But spinach, if you don't get to it, you cut it, you throw it in the freezer. I don't blanch it. I don't do anything. I put it in a Ziploc bag and throw it in the freezer. And so we are going to do the Avenger spinach. And this is a 30-day to maturity. So this is probably one of the first things we're going to be eating out of the garden. And then we're going to do Sun Angel spinach. Let's see. There we go. And this is a 45-day to maturity. So the cool thing when you pick varieties, this is something that I'm really trying to work on this year that have different maturity dates, is that you can have a more continuous harvest without having to plant succession planting, if that makes sense. So succession planting is when you plant something like lettuce every week so that you have mature lettuce every week during the harvest season. But if you don't have time to go out there every week and plant succession planting of a particular variety, you can pick 2 different varieties that have 2 different maturity dates, and then you have preempted your succession planting, if that makes sense. So this is 30 days, so we'll plant this and this 45 day on the same day, but we'll be able to eat this one first because this is going to take 15 more days to mature. So that is something that I'm trying to work on in my main garden, not just this container gardening, but I want to do that with things like cabbage so I can have a longer succession of cabbage without having to do all the math of trying to figure out starting the exact same cabbage variety on different days, if that makes sense. Okay, I dropped some seeds. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be growing are some green beans. These are momentum bush beans, and these are a 55-day to maturity. I grew bush beans in containers last year and had fabulous success. They were not deep containers. They were probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches deep. And I grew a ton of green beans in a very small space. So this is pretty exciting. We can space these green beans 3 inches apart, and they're 55-day to maturity. So I think this is going to do really well in a container. Okay, let's talk about something that I'm just excited to talk about. So we're going to talk about it next, and that is flowers. I think flowers are a critical part of gardening, and I follow 2 flower farmers on YouTube. One of them is You Can't Eat the Grass because they do half vegetables, half flowers, and the other one is, gosh, what is that? Flower Hill Farm, and she's in New York. And I did all my seed ordering for my main garden this last week, and I ordered a ridiculous amount of flowers. And so even if we're growing in small spaces, we're going to be growing a lot of flowers. I had so much fun growing flowers last year, and you need those flowers to attract the pollinators and pollinate your produce. So if you don't have the flowers to attract the pollinators, you're not going to get as big of a yield. So we didn't want to forget those. So the first thing, one of my favorite flowers, and I didn't know this until this last year, zinnias are so easy to grow and they are stunning. They kind of remind me of a dahlia, but way easier to grow. And this is a 60-day to maturity. It's a mix, so there's going to be a ton of different colors in here, and it's a dwarf zinnia. So some zinnias can grow 6 feet tall. I had no idea zinnias could get so tall, and last year I had some really massive zinnias. So this is going to be a dwarf variety. So we're going to be able to grow these in containers, and it should do a lot better than a traditional really tall variety. The next one is calendula. This is the easiest flower to grow. This flower is great because it is a huge pollinator attractor. So many pollinators love this, not just bees, but pollinators don't have to just be bees. They can be other bugs that go from, plant to plant to plant and pollinate your plants. And they're super easy to grow, and they can be used as, in bouquets, or they can be used as tea or cream. I have a video where we make calendula salve, especially if you have like eczema or skin issues. Calendula is a great medicinal. So we didn't want to forget that. And that is going to be great for a container. And then the last flower we have is the Sunspot Dwarf Sunflower. And I thought this was so pretty because it's got this huge, big, black, round head with these vibrant yellow petals. And it's a dwarf sunflower, so it's going to be great for a container. So this is a 60-day to maturity sunflower. I didn't grow one sunflower last year, which was pretty sad. So we are going to be growing some sunflowers this year. Okay, should we answer some questions before we get into the rest of the vegetables?
Probably. We do have several that have stacked up.
Okay.
There are a few related to what kinds of things you can grow in containers indoors.
Oh, okay.
Solely, like never bringing them outdoors if you don't have space for it.
That is a great question. So lettuce is probably one of those, especially if you have, I'm going to link, Haas Tools has a, I don't have one, but they've got this really cool indoor grow light setup for things like herbs, like basil, cilantro. You could grow lettuce, kales that you can grow inside. You do need light to grow things inside. And so they have this container, or excuse me, like countertop indoor grow light setup that you can grow. But if you have a windowsill with really good light, you could probably grow basil, lettuce, spinach, cilantro, and microgreens and sprouts. If you've never grown anything and you only have inside, sprouts are another really good thing to grow.
Okay, we also have several people asking for a video on how to raise or care for chickens. Do you have anything like that planned in the future?
Yes, I don't feel like I am the best chicken expert out there, and our chicken setup could be a lot better. Honestly, my chicken's free range right now probably every single day. So I can definitely do what I can show you what we do, but I don't think I'm not the end all be all chicken person, because I just let them run around my property all the time and I feed them and I water them, and we're going to completely revamp their chicken setup for next year. So when we rebuild their chicken setup, you guys of course will know every single thing about it. I think personally, from my experience, chicken rearing is it doesn't take a lot. You just need to make sure they're fed and watered, and I don't know. I'm probably not the best person to ask for chicken rearing advice, because I let them hang out on my front porch. I don't think many people let their chickens hang out on their front porch.
Yeah, they're pretty easy. We don't even have a fence on one side of our property.
Yeah,
and they don't wander.
Our the front fourth of our property, there's no fence, and they've never crossed that property.
Except that one time, the incident.
Yeah, but I think our neighbor's dog got into our property. I'm pretty sure, but
there's a little uncertainty there. But for the most part, it's been pretty easy.
Yeah, I think that if wanted chickens, get them, and I just dive right in and I get them, and then I figure it out along the way. But I will do more chicken videos. But right now, I'm kind of, to be honest, I'm embarrassed with my chicken setup because it's not cute. It's functional, kind of, not really. So it's kind of something I'm kind of embarrassed about, to be completely frank with you. So that's why I haven't done chicken videos.
On a different chicken topic.
Yeah.
So now that you've made stock for freezer, pressure canner, and freeze dryer, which is your favorite method?
Food preservation?
No, for chicken stock or stocks in general.
Oh, freezer is my least favorite, because the freezer, you have to think far enough advance to thaw it. And I would always freeze it in glass because I didn't want to waste Ziploc bags. And freezing is not super functional. I love canned broth. I love it. If you are new to food preservation and you're just getting started, I would say go get yourself a pressure canner and pressure can broth. It is fantastic. It's an affordable way to get into food preservation with things that are shelf stable. And freeze drying is pretty incredible too. So I'm going to link my freeze dryer and my freeze dry video on broth. I am just starting to use my freeze dried broth, and I'm realizing how versatile and useful it is, because I can create a lot of flavor in items without having to put a lot of liquid in items, because it's powder. So I can put that broth flavor, like you would use chicken bouillon, store-bought chicken bouillon, into my cooking without having to put all the liquid that canned broth would do. But a freeze dryer is an investment. And so if you're new to food preservation, I would say buy yourself a pressure canner. I'll link mine. I have a Presto pressure canner. It's the most affordable pressure canner you can get, and it's a great way to start food preservation. But I love my freeze dryer, and I love freeze dried broth. So I think they just have different applications, and what you can use them for is what I'm learning, if that answers your question.
We've also had a lot of questions that are related to kind of the timing of planting things in the container.
Okay, we're going to get to that. planting, that is going to be after we should probably finish the seed haul. And then we're going to talk about planting guide and schedule because that won't take super long. And then we will get to the containers that we're going to be using. I have some here, and then I have some that are on their way that I ordered that are not here yet. So does that sound like a good plan? Okay, Josh gave me the thumbs up, so we're going to continue. So the next thing we're going to grow in a container, and one cool thing about when you're trying to grow in small spaces is if you can think of things that can grow vertically, that's always good. So one thing, the straight 8 cucumber. A cucumber is a really great thing that you can grow in a small space because they are a vine plant, and so you can get them to grow up a trellis. So that is why we're going to try growing a cucumber together. And this is supposed to be a really prolific cucumber. It's a 65-day to maturity, which is a very short time to maturity. And this is not a pickling cucumber. It's not something that you necessarily can to pickle. We will make pickles out of these, but we'll do like a quick pickle as opposed to a canned pickle. And these just looked really good when I was reading the description on these cucumbers. They were powdery mildew resistant. That was another thing when we were looking at the varieties. We looked at varieties that were resistant to disease, and that was this straight 8 cucumber was powdery mildew resistant. So I'm excited about this one. Okay, so let's get into the herbs because we are going to be growing some herbs together. And I had some thoughts on these herbs. I'm going to try to organize them here. So I picked out 3 different herbs for container gardening, and I realized after that I forgot one, but we'll get to that in just a second. So the first one is this garlic chives. I've personally never eaten a garlic chive, but it's supposed to taste like garlic. And if we're growing in really small spaces, it's probably not practical to grow a bunch of heads of garlic. But these garlic chives sounded like they were pretty easy to grow. They're 75-day to maturity, and they're cut and come again, so you can continue to cut them and harvest them throughout the growing season. And we can get ourselves some garlic flavor without having to grow an entire head of garlic. So that is why I thought that these garlic chives would be a great addition to our container gardening setup because we can get that garlic flavor. So this is something I'm super excited about because I've never tried this. I've never eaten it. I've never grown it, but I think it's going to be a great addition to a container garden. The next thing are these warrior bunching onions. So I grew these not this variety. I grew green onions. This is a green onion last year. And I was shocked, 1, how easy they were to grow, and 2, how big they got. So some of them I didn't harvest until because I had so many of them, and they grew huge bulbs. But I thought that a green onion would be a great thing for container gardening because we're probably not going to grow a bunch of bulb onions if we don't have very much space. So this is going to give us the onion flavor that we want from onions without having to grow a ton of bulbs. And the other thing I was thinking about, the awesome thing about green onions is these are like the garlic chives. They're a cut and come again. You can continue to harvest them right at the base. So if you leave, oh, sorry, that was probably really loud. If you leave the root end and you harvest, an inch or an inch and a half above the white part of the onion, then you can continue to harvest and harvest and harvest and harvest throughout the growing season. So that is why I thought this would be a great addition to a container garden. And the last herb that we have in this collection is some Genevieve, I don't know how to pronounce that, Genevieve's basil. This is a very classic basil variety, and it grows really well in containers, and everybody loves basil in the summer. Who doesn't love basil in the summer? And that is that. So when it comes to herbs, the one thing I realized I missed, this was my fault, is parsley, because parsley grows really well in containers too. So if you're following along in this container garden series and you want to grow some really delicious fresh herbs, get yourself some parsley too, because I think there's a few things when you're cooking that can really elevate your cooking to the next level that make it just that much better. Is one, fresh herbs. I don't think we use those enough in our daily cooking. That is the one thing that I'm missing during this pantry challenge because I don't have any fresh herbs right now. 2 is fresh citrus and using the zest of the citrus. And 3 is using cheese that you have to grate yourself because you can get better quality cheese and you don't have all the caking agents and fillers, and it melts better. So anyway, I digress. Fresh herbs are important. Okay, so let's get into peppers, because you can't have a summer garden without peppers. One of my big things that I am going to push myself to grow more of and better next year, or this year, I should say, it's 2022 already, are peppers. So we have 3 different varieties of peppers here that we're going to be growing in this container garden series. And the first one are these Mamma Mia Rosa peppers. They're a thin-walled red pepper, and these are a sweet pepper. This is a 70-day to maturing pepper, and that is not super long. That's a pretty short day to maturing pepper. We can space these 2 to 4 inches apart, which is 2 to 4 feet apart. So 1 pot per pepper, right? Yes, 1 pot per pepper. So I'm excited about this. And then you can't have a garden without a few jalapenos. And this jalapeno variety is supposed to do really well in a container. And so I'm excited about this. If you've never had cowboy candy or fresh salsa in the summer, you definitely need some jalapenos in your garden. And so we're going to grow jalapenos. And then the last one is, they're called Right On red peppers. And these are supposed to be a very sweet pepper. They're supposed to be super good as a roasted or grilled vegetable. So I'm excited about this. They're a 70-day to maturing pepper, and they're just super cute. I'm super excited about them. If you go onto Haas Tools website, these peppers came in a yellow and a orange, I believe. And so if you want to try this pepper in a couple different colors, you can try those in a couple different colors. Okay. So back to growing things tall and skinny, we have just kind of a classic, garden vegetable. These are probably one of the easiest things to grow if you've never grown anything, and that's a radish. And I went with the breakfast French radish because these are really tall and skinny radishes, so we'll be able to grow a lot more of them in a smaller space. These are 25 days to maturity. You can grow these all summer long, basically, and they take less than 4 weeks to grow. So if you've never grown anything, grow yourself some radishes. You'll be proud of yourself, and you can eat the radish greens if you want. I don't like to eat the radish greens, but my chickens, it's probably one of their favorite snacks. So you kind of get 2 for the price of 1. And so that's why we went with the French breakfast radish. And these are not a super spicy radish either. They're more of a mild radish. And so if you're not a huge fan of that really, really spicy radish flavor, you probably will like these. The best way to eat a radish is to do a quick pickle. Take them, slice them super, super thin, put some red wine vinegar on them, maybe a couple teaspoons of sugar, a couple dashes of salt. Let them sit in that vinegar solution for 20 minutes, put them on a taco, and you will feel like a professional chef. Pickled radishes are delicious. All right. And then what is a garden without some carrots? This is called Scarlet Nance carrots. These are a very common carrot. They're a very easy carrot to grow. They kind of have a blunted end. And these are a 75-day to maturity carrot. And I've grown these, and these did fantastic. I grew this variety last year. I'm going to grow it again this year, and I'm really excited about growing carrots. Carrots are one of my absolute favorite things to grow because they taste so much better than a store-bought carrot. So much better. All right, we have 3 more seed packets to get through, but 1 variety. The last and final thing are tomatoes. What would be a summer garden without tomatoes? I feel like the tomato is the king of the garden because a store-bought tomato does not hold any weight to a summer fresh tomato, and when they're homegrown, they're just that much better. So we have 3 varieties of tomatoes. These are all what are called determinate tomatoes. So tomatoes fall into 2 main categories. Determinate, meaning they only get to a certain size, and an indeterminate tomato, which is a tomato that keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. So because we're going to be growing these in containers, we want a determinate tomato that will only get to a certain size because we don't want it to go crazy. Okay, so we have the first one are these These are a rosy finch tomato. These are a 55-day tomato. That is a very short amount of time between when you plant it in the ground and when you are going to be harvesting a tomato. So I'm pretty excited about that. This is like it's a cherry tomato variety. And yeah, so these are rosy finch tomatoes, 55-day, and we're going to be growing these in pots. So I'm happy about that. And then another red tomato. This is container choice red tomato, which is very appropriate for what we're going to be doing. This is more of a slicer tomato. It's not going to be as big as, say, a mortgage lifter tomato, which gets, this big, but it's going to be a good sized tomato that you would slice to put on a hamburger, on a sandwich, a BLT, something like that. So the container choice red tomato. So I'm excited about that. And last but not least, we are going to grow these lemon boy tomatoes. These won the best flavor tomato. So that is why we decided to add this into our container garden collection, because one, it's just really pretty and cute and yellow. So always, that's the cool thing about growing your own vegetables is you can, have different color varieties that you would typically get at the grocery store. And these are supposed to taste fantastic. I've never tasted these tomatoes, but I'm excited to give them a try. So that's the entire seed collection for this container collection that we're going to be doing this year. So let's answer some questions, and then we're going to talk about how do we know when we're supposed to start these seeds, indoors or outdoors?
Boy, I don't know where to start.
Okay,
I guess a good question actually related would be, gotten some questions about like watering the containers.
Okay.
And how do you plan to determine how much water to give each container?
That's a great question. And that is something that we are going to work through together. I did order, Haas Tools has a container gardening watering setup. So a lot of you guys have asked about our watering setup because Josh created this beautiful irrigation system for me. And we are going to do videos on what that irrigation system is coming toward the spring. But Haas Tools has, I'm going to put that in here, watering system, because I didn't put that in the description box yet. And I ordered it. I have it in my living room. I just haven't set it up yet. And it's everything you need to have a watering system, like a drip irrigation system for your containers. And it's all in one because Josh created a custom one for me. I wanted to order this one so that I could try to set it up myself and we can get all these containers watered. I think the rule of thumb for watering is 1 inch of water. I'm not a gardening expert. If it's 1 inch of water per week or one inch of water per day, but I do know, the one thing I do know is containers take a lot more water than an in-ground garden because they dry out a lot faster. So I'm going to do a lot of hand watering, but I'm going to try to set up this container gardening drip system that I ordered through Haas Tools, which will be linked down below.
So along those lines, do you have a plan or solution for how to trellis beans and tomatoes that need to grow vertically?
Yeah. Yep. And we'll go over all of those. We're going to do, the cool thing about these tomatoes is a lot of tomatoes don't do well in tomato cages because tomato cages are only, 4 feet tall. But when you select the correct variety, like a determinate tomato, those are perfect for a tomato cage. So we're going to grow these in a tomato cage. If you watch any of my garden tour videos, you'll see that I have some cattle panels, and that is a better growing system for an indeterminate tomato, a tomato that just wants to vine and continue to grow and grow and grow. But for a tomato that it's only going to get so big, a tomato cage is a great system for that. Can I go back? I'm going to go back to the watering question. So when we start talking about container gardening, you know what? No, let's keep going with questions. I'll come back to that because I do have a watering solution for some container gardening, and we'll get to that. So stay tuned for that.
There's other kind of side questions that maybe we can just do at the end.
Yeah. Oh, okay. At the end.
Now, but they're kind of unrelated. So.
Okay. So are there questions about gardening or should I move on to the container or when we're going to start our seeds?
I think you could probably move on to when
So don't worry if you've asked a question. Josh has it. If it's not related necessarily just to this gardening thing, we will answer it toward the end. So we have all these seeds. How on earth do we know? Are we supposed to start them inside? Are we supposed to directly seed them in the ground? How do we know what to do when we're supposed to do it? For me, there is a website called the Farmers Almanac, and it is the best resource because if you follow exactly when I plant my things, it's not going to necessarily be when you should plant your things. So the Farmers Almanac, I have them linked in the description box already. And you put your zip code into the Farmers Almanac and it'll give you a list of what vegetable varieties you need to start inside as seeds before and when you should start them. It's going to give you a date range of when you need to start them inside for where you live. And then it's going to give you a date when you need to take those seeds that you started inside and you need to transplant that seedling plant outside. It's also going to give you the date of when you're going to direct seed which vegetables. So and it's going to help you too, because a thing like a carrot, it's not going to give you a date of when you should sow a carrot inside to then transplant outside, because you're not going to do that. You're going to take a carrot and you're going to put it directly into the ground outside. So it's going to tell you when to plant your carrot outside, if that makes sense. So for you, look up, and the link will be down in the description box, the Farmers Almanac, so you can look up your planting guide for where you live, because everybody's different. My planting guide is different than my mother-in-law's because she lives higher up than I do, and so even though we're not that far away from each other, our planting schedules are different just because of her altitude versus my altitude, if that makes sense. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, and someone has said that they think that Hostool also has a planting planner.
Oh, I think they do have a slide. One of those. I need to get one of those slides. It has a planting. Yes, a planting. Yeah. I'm gonna link that too.
Or I guess it's more of a planting planner on like when you would plant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have another question about from YM asking, can you reuse container soil? Like if you planted an early harvest veg and harvest it, should you reuse the soil?
Yeah, you can reuse your soil. You will want to top off with, sorry if you can hear my dogs barking. You are going to want to continue to top off with compost. Josh is going to go discipline the dogs. Normally I would yell at them, but I don't want to blow your ears out. So if you're going to continue to reuse your soil, like I do in my raised beds, I'm using my soil over and over and over again, but I'm continuing to build that soil. So you're going to want to either top off with some store-bought compost, some homemade compost, some worm castings. These are things you can buy, or some store-bought fertilizer that you can buy. Because if you continue to keep growing in the same soil, the vegetables are going to continue to, use those nutrients. So you want to keep replenishing it. So if you don't keep replenishing it, then the soil is going to kind of be leached of the minerals. But you don't have to, dump that soil out and then get all new soil. You just want to keep building on top of that soil, if that makes sense. Okay, so Joe Ellen asked, what size pots do we need? And we will get to that in just a minute. Josh, do you have any more questions? He just got back from running downstairs.
A bit out of breath, but I think there's just some questions about like what requirements are required for the container, whether outside or inside. Questions about, can you do it in a bedroom?
Okay.
Like stuff like that. I think you've kind of maybe answered some of those.
So if you're going to be growing food inside or plants inside, you have to have a lot of light. That is the biggest thing that I learned my first year. Is I'm going to show pictures eventually when I make the video on the grow light setup, but I tried to start seeds in my walk-in pantry. You guys have seen my walk-in pantry before, but it used to not have any shelves in it or anything. I just had a table in there and I tried growing seeds in there. And one of the number one things when you watch videos about seed starting on YouTube, and that's where I learned most of what I learned, is everyone said you need grow lights. And I said, no, I don't need grow lights. I'm going to try without, because they're an investment. Grow lights are an investment. And I didn't want to spend that investment. And they germinated. My seeds germinated. You can get seeds to germinate no problem without grow lights. You cannot get plants to grow without grow lights. So I spent, I think, $200 in seeds my first year growing. I didn't want to spend the money on even one grow light. And I basically killed all my seedlings because I couldn't get them to continue to grow. Once they sprouted, a seed has all its nutrients it needs to sprout, but then it needs light and fertilizer or compost to like continue to grow. And wasn't giving it its light, and so they got really leggy and died. And so then I had to go out and buy, $200 or $300 worth of plant starts that I could have just taken that money instead of buying those plant starts and bought grow lights. So it's hard to grow like a whole vegetable except for like those leafy greens. If you have grow lights, you can grow those inside, because it's going to be very difficult to try to grow a tomato inside if you don't have enough light for that.
So regarding the frost date, I guess the Farmers Almanac has frost date and a moon date.
I don't know anything about the moon date. I follow the frost date, and I think that's something that I want to research more. I know you can plant based on the frost date or the moon cycles, and I'm sure the moon cycle stuff sounds really like woo-wee, but I'm sure there's something to it. I just don't know anything about it because I haven't done any research. So I just plant based on my frost date, my last frost date. And should we talk about containers?
Yeah, we have some questions about what kinds of containers.
Okay.
Like, will you be doing inverted or upside down containers, stuff like that?
Okay.
So probably just showing your containers would be good.
So something that I have seen, I've watched YouTube on gardening for 5 or 6 years, for years. And one thing that I keep seeing online are these grow bag containers. So I ordered a bunch of different sizes, and they're called a root pouch. This one here in particular is a 15-gallon or 56-liter root pouch. And we're going to do a ton of growing. We're going to grow that's another thing with this container gardening. We're going to be doing some potatoes. But I don't have those yet because it's not even near ready to plant potatoes. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I have even one bigger than this. I'm going to be doing a bunch of growing in these root pouches. So I have these linked down in the description box if you're interested in checking them out. I really like the color because they're brown, so they're super neutral. So I think that the plants that are going to be growing in them are going to pop really nicely. And I have this one. It's hard to know how big things are when you order something online. This is a 1-gallon pouch. This is pretty small. I probably will only be able to grow, maybe like 2 basil plants in this, or maybe some mint or something like this. So I think that this is functional. I don't think I'm going to order any more of them because they are pretty small. But if you have a really small space, like just a patio, something like this might be really great for you. So I'm showing you so you can kind of get an idea of what size they are, like in comparison. So this is 1 gallon. This is a 5-gallon root pouch. This I think is going to be perfect for 1 tomato plant or 1 pepper plant. So I'm going to probably order a few more of these. I think just one of each size because I wanted to see what they were looking like and how big they were. So this is the 5-gallon one. You can kind of see how big it is. You can probably put 1 tomato plant. But when we plant our tomato plant in here, we'll probably plant some lettuce or something around the outside. So we're going to work on maximizing our growing space. We're not going to just put 1 plant in here. We'll put a tomato plant or a pepper plant and then some lettuce or maybe some carrots around the outside.
Could you, before you get further into the sizes, people are wondering like what kind of soil to put in, and do you use this instead of a container, or is this like something you put in the container?
No. This is the container. This is our container. This is like basically like a raised bed or a pot, but it's a grow bag, and we're gonna be putting. I'm gonna just go to Home Depot or to Lowe's, or I'm gonna buy some of that soil mix that goes in container gardening. That's what I'm gonna put in these. raised bed gardening mix, basically. And then I'll probably amend it with some compost. So I'll probably buy some raised bed soil mix. We're going to go all into depth on this when we plant. And then we will probably amend with some compost, like some, there's different compost you can buy at your box stores. I may do one big order of bulk compost from my local nursery because I want to top dress some of my raised beds with it. So if I do that, I will probably put some of that compost in these as well. But this is the container that you're going to grow. So if you have a patio, if you have a deck, if you have an area where you're going to be gardening, you can put, this is the pot. So does that answer that question?
Yeah, I think so. And then people are wondering, like, are they reusable year after year, or do they decompose?
Nope, these are reusable year after year. So this is my first year using them. So I can't tell you how many years we're going to get out of them. We're going to learn that together. But I've seen people on YouTube and stuff use them multiple years in a row. So I think we can keep using them multiple years in a row. But this is our first time doing this together. So this is a 15-gallon bag. So this, I think I could put maybe 2 tomato plants in, maybe 4 pepper plants in, and then we are going to be maximizing our growing space. So we'll probably put, if we put 4 pepper plants in here, we'll put some lettuce, some carrots, some radish, some beets, something like that around the outside. And then this one is huge. This one is a 55-gallon bag. And this one is basically like, instead of, if you don't have, if you don't know how to build a raised bed, this is a great alternative to that, because we're going to be able to put a lot of stuff in here, grow a lot of stuff in here. This is going to be great for potatoes. We're going to definitely grow some potatoes in here. And yeah, it's kind of like an alternative to a raised, this big size is kind of an alternative to a raised bed. So that's that.
So some people are wondering, is this all the different containers you're going to use, or do you plan to use other types of containers as kind of experiments?
That's a great question. That is what we're going to next. So the next thing I've got these are grow bags. So we're going to test them out together. We're learning this together. I am not a garden expert. I don't have all the answers. So I'm excited about these grow bags because I see them all over online, and we're going to learn and we're going to use them together for the first time. But I also just ordered 2 green stalks. So if you've watched mini gardeners online, you will have seen them. They are, I don't have it here to show you. I wish I did, but I just ordered them 2 days ago. So I don't know when they're going to be here. And they're a vertical garden. And this has to do with the watering. They have some patent on, you pour the water in the top and it waters all of it's a 7 or 5 tiered green stalk. So there's 5 tiers to it. And I have that link down in the description box. So if you want to see what I'm talking about, it's basically this, it's, I think like 6 feet tall. I can't give you the measurements because I don't know the measurements exactly, but it's really tall. And I see all the gardeners on YouTube use it. So I figured I might as well order some too. And you water it from the top and it waters all of them. And so we're going to try those out together. That's perfect if you have a really small space, because we're not growing on the ground. We're growing up. We're going vertical. And then from now until when garden season happens, I'm going to be looking at Goodwill and I'm going to be looking at estate sales. So Renee, if you're still on here, we are going to be going estate selling. You can always find a lot of really good pots at estate sales. So I'm going to be looking for some bigger pots to be growing outside in containers. So we're going to have a variety of the grow bags, the green stalk, the vertical garden, and then just pots that I find at Goodwill and estate sales, garage sales. Because I have some, my sister donated, if you watch some of my garden tour videos, I grew green beans in some, she gave them to me for free, and I'm going to use them again next year, some just plastic pots, and they worked really well. And so I think that I'm going to be able to find a lot of good pots at garage sales and Goodwill to grow in. I don't think it has to be, I just think that we can, if that's all that we can do is, go garage selling and find pots, I think we can do a lot in that too. And then I do want to buy, if you watched, I plant 2 of my herb beds are in those half wine barrels. I want to buy a couple more of those as well. So I'm excited about that. So we're going to try a bunch of different methods and we're going to figure out what works best. Now, what works best for me ultimately might be different than works best for you, just depending on, you know, what our living situation is. So I think that that's kind of cool about all these different options is that we can kind of figure out what's best for each of us. All right. Did I answer that? So that's the containers. So basically the root pouches, green stock, and thrifted items. I might buy a couple new ones too, but that's my goal. Try to find as many thrifted ones as possible. I want to talk about the pantry challenge if there's no other questions. I'm sure there's questions. You had some questions, Josh, right?
There's kind of an overwhelming number of questions. I mean, I'm trying to group stuff together if I see kind of themes of things. And a few of them are kind of related to, you know, if you had to pick 3 herbs or spices and you can only grow those 3 things, what would you pick?
Oh, that's a great question. The 3 herbs I would grow are basil, parsley, and maybe mint. Because they're relatively easy to grow and they pack a lot of flavor in those 3 herbs. And herbs can be, I would say cilantro because cilantro is probably my favorite herb, but I have had a very hard time growing cilantro. It's not easy to grow, but parsley, basil, and mint are super easy. They pack a ton of flavor into them. And that's probably what I would say would be like my go-to easiest herbs to grow, even though cilantro is my absolute favorite herb, but I have not been able to get it to grow that well.
Also worth noting is there's just a lot of people posting great ideas for other types of containers.
Oh, yeah.
So like one that was interesting was like frosting containers from bakeries or
yeah, like 5-gallon buckets. My aunt and uncle live in Michigan and they have a whole 5-gallon bucket container garden. So that's basically the frosting container. So that's a great suggestion.
And then I'm not sure. I'm trying to pick some other stuff out.
I've seen some people use tires as container gardening. It's basically just, you know, if you can find a free tire, then you can fill that with your compost. I probably wouldn't grow root vegetables in a tire just because who knows what like stuff is leaching into the soil, but I've seen that as a recycle option for growing in a container or contained space, I should say.
Are there things to consider with the drainage depending on the container? Or is it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think that's probably the value
So these drain. These are the root pouches. So you don't have to worry about like drilling holes into them. But if you're buying pots at Goodwill or you're buying pots like my wine barrels, my half wine barrels that I have a lot of my herbs in, those didn't have holes in the bottom. So you have to put holes in the bottom. If you don't put holes in the bottom, then the water is going to sit there and it's going to rot your roots. So if you thrift a container or you buy a container that you want to grow in, make sure you definitely put some holes in the bottom for good drainage. For sure. That's a great, yeah. And I'm sure you guys, if you guys have good suggestions on containers, please leave them in the comments because that's how we learn is just from helping each other out with that for sure.
And then I don't know your planned trajectory for this, but it's been about an hour.
Oh, okay.
And I've been trying to write down some of the hashtag ideas.
Okay.
Were you wanting to pick some of those and do like a poll of the top 5 later?
I want to sit down and think about the hashtag ideas. So I'll probably today and tomorrow think over them. And then maybe that's a good idea. A poll or something on YouTube and Instagram, which one's the best one or something.
I have noted some and there's some good
There's
some good
yeah, I love
ones.
it. I'm not good at puns, but Josh is all about the puns. So if you can.
There are a couple like garden space race is kind of fun.
Oh, that's cute. I like that one.
Growing smaller.
There's
a lot of them. I'm gonna just if I get into too many, then it's
we'll
like
say
I'm
a few more.
leaving
That's fun. I like.
These aren't all puns, I guess, but we have Mighty Seed Challenge. Small space, big results.
Oh, that's good. I have
Picking
a couple
bunches.
written down from Instagram. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but there were some good ones too.
And then regarding these, when we do pick one, if someone doesn't have Instagram, do you have other places that they could be using these? Or is it mostly just Instagram?
It's mostly just Instagram. Yeah. I mean, you could use it on Facebook too. I don't have a Facebook though. But if you have other gardeners or groups or whatever you're in, you can certainly use the hashtag, whatever we come up with. Were there other like super chats or anything that we needed to address?
We had a few generous super chats that didn't have questions, that were just
Well, let's say
supportive,
thank you.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I do have one actually.
Okay.
That is from the Age of Fabulous. What is your favorite seed supplier?
So I don't have one that's my absolute like favorite, because they all have something to offer. And so I have in the description of this video some of the ones that I ordered my seeds through. So the ones this year that I ordered my seeds through are Haas Tools, MI Gardner, Seeds for Generations, rareseeds.com, which is Baker Creek, and then one that's local to me, which is Territorial Seeds. So all of those seed companies will be linked down in the description box. I ordered all my seeds 3 days ago or 4 days ago. So as soon as they get here, we're going to do an entire seed haul. You're going to see every single seed I bought from every single company I bought them for. And they all are fantastic, but they're all unique, and they all have their specialty type thing. And so, and I ordered from Johnny's Seeds. So you'll know exactly like what I ordered them from. And I'll kind of go more into depth of why I ordered what I ordered from, what place I ordered them from. But if you want to check those companies out, they will be linked down in the description box of this video.
We also have a question from quite a bit earlier that I missed, which was from Stacy Altman.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Love your videos. Can you do a video on how you do your hair, please?"
Stacy, I can do a video on that, but I just feel super weird about doing a hair tutorial video, because I just feel weird about doing a hair tutorial video. But I can do a video on that, and I will do a video on it, but I don't know how to incorporate that into one of my videos. If it should be like a day in the life video or just like a hair tutorial video, but that is going to be like super weird, just popping up on my channel like a hair tutorial video. Maybe, yeah. So yes, I will do that, but
we also got another super chat from the Age of Fabulous that says, "Thank you for all that you do.
Oh, thank you.
What is your personal goal for your kitchen for 2022? And it rhymes.
My goal for my kitchen is to eat as much fresh produce out of the garden as possible. I think that's my number one goal, because, we really did, because I was too busy. Like, preparing fresh meals does take time. And we ate a lot of freezer meals, which was awesome. Like, I am not upset that we did that, because it kept us from eating out. We ate at home, but I want to try to enjoy the freshness of the garden when it is here. So that is probably my number one goal.
And I just realized that was from your last live. So
oh, really?
Apparently I'm scrolling through them. And so that's Age of Fabulous. I think we might have missed that last time.
Oh, I'm sorry. If we ever missed something, I really apologize. That's too bad.
That's all I've gathered from questions, other than the ones that I probably missed reading through other questions. So
do I save all of your seeds? Hatching Out Small asked me that. I just saw that, so I thought I'd answer. I did save some seeds last year, but I do grow some hybrid varieties, so you can't save the seeds because you're not going to get a true to type. So I don't save everything, but I did save a few things. A few of you guys had gifted me a couple seed saving books, and that is my homework, is to read up more on seed saving. So I'm excited about that. Well, friends, we didn't really have time to talk too much about the pantry challenge because it's been an hour. So, Boots asked if my nails, if they're dip. No, they're solar. Favorite apron for gardening. Oh, my favorite apron for gardening and for cooking. I didn't answer that. I should have answered the favorite apron is a Rue apron, which I'll link down in the description box. I love my gardening Rue apron. This is my new favorite apron. My brother-in-law got for me for Christmas, and it is from, where's this? Crate and Barrel. No.
You said something different last time, but I'm not sure.
Pottery Barn or Crate and Barrel. I'll link it down below. It's from one of those stores. It's only $30, so it's not as super expensive. It's from like a nice store, but it's affordable. So pantry challenge. I think on Wednesday, week 2 of what we ate in a week is going to be coming out. So I'm excited about that. It's not much of a challenge yet because I keep a lot of food in the house, but it's probably going to start getting to more of a challenge. I'm excited about all these new recipes we're trying together. And yeah, I think that's probably it for the night.
She did almost get me to get ice cream from the store,
Oh,
but
Josh, yeah. So
she stayed strong.
So I'm gonna be honest. 2 nights ago, I text Josh and because I'm on the pantry challenge, Josh is not on the pantry challenge, right? So like there are some ways to like work around this, right? So I texted him and I was like, "Can you buy ice cream on your way home?" And he didn't get the message because he was at work or whatever. And then he's like, "Yeah, what kind do you want?" You know, and I said, "No, no, no, no. Don't get the ice cream." So he didn't go get me ice cream because I had self-control.
Which
But
is
I
great.
did tell him to go get me ice cream. And he was like, "What kind?" And I was like, no, okay. Yep. Okay, so thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I greatly appreciate it. I have so much fun. If you guys want to see what we ate last week for our pantry challenge week 1, I will link that. That will be the next video that will pop right up so you can go enjoy that. If you guys are new around here, please consider subscribing. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Don't forget to check out the description box because all of the things that we talked about, any of the links you need are going to be down there. If I forgot to leave one of the links, please comment so that I remember to put it in there. I hope you guys are having a great day and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, guys.